Okay, so good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. We are going to get started. I see Dr. Adderley is on the line, and I believe I saw Keishel. Keishel, are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Wellington at Burn International and the Training Authority's webinar entitled The Unmeeting Social Distancing versus Social Separation. My name's Wellington Hepburn. I'm the president of Wellington Hepburn International, which is a local and international company that focuses essentially on making people better. I'll steal a line from one of my mentors, faster, further, longer, stronger. Um, Today, we're going to be focusing on how do we navigate COVID-19, adhere to social distancing protocols, but also still find ways to connect. There's a difference between social distancing and social separation. And we'll be hearing from Dr. Richard Adderley on that topic today. Before I hand it over to Keishel and Dr. Adderley, a couple things I want to highlight. I want to welcome our local participants from the Bahamas. Thank you for taking time to attend our webinar today. And I also want to highlight our international participants. One of the good things about this series is that we've been able to extend our reach even beyond the Bahamas. So in the previous 6 sessions, we would have had participants from the US, the UK, Malaysia, Spain, and even Tanzania, East Africa. So if anyone's on the line who's an international participant, we thank you for taking your time also. A few meeting guidelines that I want to remind you of. As you log into the session, you have the ability to decide whether you want to keep your video on or off. That's entirely your preference. As it relates to audio, I would like for everyone to keep their audio off until we get to the segment where we have interview questions. And if you wish, you can turn your audio on to verbally say your question, or if you wish, you can also put your question in the chat. As another courtesy, I want to mention to you that this session is being recorded. We plan to post it on my WHI YouTube page and also on the WHI website. So if you want to refer to this session after the session is done, know that it will be posted on our YouTube channel and website, and we will send out a note as a reminder to let everyone know when it is posted. And then last but not least, I just want to make mention of something. As we have had increased use of web conferencing tools, some individuals, just as a part of life, have decided to find less than savory ways to utilize the tool. So we've had instances, not necessarily my company, but globally, there have been instances where individuals have jumped onto Zoom meetings and they've done some less than savory things. So if we have an instance of Zoom bombing, as they call it, I will end the webinar immediately. As a part of the registration process, I have all of your contact details. And then within 5 minutes, you'll get a communication from me describing how we'll proceed with the webinar. All right. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to Keishel to introduce herself, and then also over to Dr. Adderley to introduce himself.
All right. So welcome, everyone. I acknowledge all of you who are on this session. For those, of course, who are also continuing to return, especially on a Sunday, I commend you all for being here. My name is Keishel Davis. I am the founder and CEO of the Training Authority, which is a training organization that supports business owners from the one-on-one startup to corporate organizations. And our aim really is to help them to become better, as Wellington says, to help them grow and succeed. We are considered one of the top learning partners for Caribbean organizations in terms of learning and development as well. And our goal really is to help provide the training and the tools to help people become their best self, as I like to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Adderley, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. I'm Richard Adderley. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I'm also assistant professor of psychology at the University of the Bahamas. For this current academic year, I head the psychology, sociology, and social work departments. And I also am a partner with an employee assistance company called Bridges. And even though I am a licensed psychologist, my specialty is in the area of occupational health psychology, which brings together workplace issues. And that is my focus. I usually address employee wellness, employee safety, and the things that make them tick and become more productive in the workplace. And I'm looking forward to a great session today. I've got quite a number of slides that I will present to you, but we're going to move quickly within the allotted time period, which will allow the participants to ask questions at the end.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Adderley. I also want to put in there too that Dr. Adderley is a past president for the Bahamas Psychological Association. So I just wanted to put that insert in there. So Kishelle, do you want to tell us a little bit about the collaboration that your company and mine has decided to do for these sessions?
Of course, there's this whole concept about collaboration and competition. I think that collaboration is really one of the single biggest drivers for success and growth in organizations. And the fact that Wellington Hebron International, Wellington's company, and the Training Authority believe in the same mission. We believe in this. We have the similar values as it relates to growth, empowerment, education. And so when Wellington came up with the concept and reached out to me, it was a no-brainer. And because the goal, of course, is of this mission, of this initiative, is to help you become better. And again, I'm using Wellington's term, but it's also my term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to really help people use this time to come out of this time better, more skilled, more refined, however you want to define it. And so I'm really looking forward to what this will continue to become and how this will continue to impact people's lives. And so continue to evolve and continue to use these sessions to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Keisha. I want to put something on the screen just so everyone can be aware of what it is that we're working toward. So Keisha and I, and a few partners, because we have a couple different companies that we partnered with in this process, are delivering 14 webinars that are focused on skill development and just becoming better. So today's webinar is the May 24th one, where we're focusing on social distancing and social separation. And then the upcoming webinar is focused on My Health is My Wealth. Listen, I feel so strongly that the only way you can improve is if you have knowledge. And if you apply that knowledge consistently. And through the Corona Collaboration Series, which is this lineup of the different 14 webinars, we've come up with unique topics that individuals need to be aware of if they want to increase their bench strength and become better. How do you work from home? How do you manage productivity for virtual teams? How do you develop strategy amidst radical change? All of our organizations had a strategic plan at the beginning of the year. Now, COVID has come, and I guarantee you that more than half of that strategic plan needs to change. So how do you develop strategy? How do you even promote your health while you are home? So know that we have a lineup. It's completely free. You can feel free to jump on any webinar or webinars that interest you. And we're here to help you learn, grow, and become better during this time. All right? So now we're going to hear from Dr. Adderley. Dr. Adderley has prepared a presentation for us to walk us through this whole concept of social distancing and the difference between social distancing and social separation. Dr. Adderley's presentation will be for 40 minutes, so he will go until about 1:50. I would like to ask that you keep your questions until the end, because we do have a 30-minute segment at the end solely for interview questions. And those questions, as a reminder, can be dropped in the chat, or if you wish, you can just raise your hand. You can use the reactions icon on the bottom toolbar, raise your hand, and then after that, you can unmute your mic and get your questions answered. All right, so over to you, Dr. Adderley.
Hey, great. So let's go. Next slide. Now this is, we're living in a unusual time for most of us. I've never experienced
Are you still there?
planet,
Okay,
and
all
that's
right.
to stay away from other humans. That's a challenge. Um, for many of us who heard and know about Aristotle, who was an ancient Greek philosopher, one of the things that Aristotle said was man is by nature a social animal. And think about it, we all learn socially. Years ago when I worked in substance abuse, one of the things that I usually shared is that no one really gets up any given day and decide that, look, I'm going to go smoke drugs today. We all learn things because from our social interactions. Our lives depend on other humans. We influence, and we are also influenced by other people. We naturally seek the companionship of others. And our connection to others is what enables us to survive and to thrive. Next. Our need to belong or to be social is what drives us to seek out stable, long-lasting relationships with other people. It also motivates us to participate in social activities. And that is why so many of us join clubs. We become part of teams. We attend religious groups. We join community organizations. Next, okay. And when we began to look, I know all of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so when I took another look at this, I tried to figure out, now, why is it that there is such an issue between maintaining social distance, but feeling that you have to be a part of a group? And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's pretty easy to understand, because the second level is safety, the need for safety, but right above it is the need for belonging. And so there's a conflict that's going on amongst many of us, because we know that we need to be safe, and that is what social distancing says, that we need to remain apart, we need to separate. However, the next level of needs says that friendship, family, sexual intimacy, a sense of belonging, all of these things are critical. And this is why people, after a few days, a few weeks of of distancing, find themselves moving next to belonging, because the minute that they feel safe, the next step is that, look here, I got to get back to my social contact. I got to be a part of this group. I got to be a part of a crowd. And this is why, if we look at many of the countries that are reopening, one of the first issues that you see is that people are forgetting that, look here, I need to socially distance myself.
Yeah.
They gravitate right towards, being back together, to doing the sort of things that they did before. And it's because this need to belong, this need to be social is so real and so important to us as human beings.
Yeah.
Next. So belongingness is part of one of the major needs that motivate behavior. We all like to feel that we are part of something. The need for belonging helps us to experience companionship and acceptance through family, friends, and other relationships. A lot of times when I'm dealing in counseling, people tell me that I don't feel as if I belong. I don't feel as if I'm accepted. And so this is a critical point for us as human beings, to be a part, to be socially accepted. The irony of it is that we are now being asked to work together, but in the process to keep our distance. How is that important? Work together, but remain distant. And that's a big challenge. Next. So the isolation of self-quarantine and social distancing have dismantled many people's sense of community. We wake up, this isn't real. I can't wait to go back to being normal. What most of us are not prepared for is that what is the new normal?
Mm-hmm.
Because it looks as if things are not going to go be the same as they were earlier this year. I was just thinking of myself as a professor, and one of the things that I know in my classes at UB, we average 25 students, and classrooms are equipped to handle 25 students. But with social distancing, it means that 25 students can no longer fit into one of those classrooms. So it means that we're going to have smaller classes, we're going to have more teachers, or we're going to have to find a new way of delivering our lectures. The support that we get from colleagues, friends, and family have at best been diminished by these safety measures. All of the things that we grew up doing are about to change. And so this creates some anxiety and it creates some fear because we may not return to how it was earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Many people are reporting elevated levels of frustration, anxiety, and stress. Now, 8 weeks ago, when we first realized that, that the coronavirus had hit our shores, there was a lot of panic. There was a lot of fear. People were, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. But guess what? 6 weeks later, we're becoming a little frustrated. And we're saying, how long is it going to take? Okay? So there's a lot of anxiety. And when we think in terms of anxiety, we think in terms of the fear of the unknown. And worrying leads to stress, stress leads to anxiety. And so we have a lot of people who started off worrying, they became stressed, and now they're becoming anxious. Because the thing is, we're looking at it and we're saying, I wonder when our country's going to open up. I wonder how much longer I could sustain. Will I have a job to go back to? And so there's a lot of frustration now, and people are getting angry. Even in the food stores, people seem to be kicked off for little stuff. Okay, so there's a lot of tension
Mm-hmm.
in our community. Next. So minor annoyances are now magnified, and relationships seem distressed and less nourishing due to the stresses of way too much time together. And there's an interesting book that I read, a play that I read in college called No Exit by a French existentialist called Jean-Paul Sartre. And in this book, 3 individuals who worked together but did not get along died. And when they awoke in the afterlife, they awoke as roommates. And one of them said, oh my goodness, I thought hell was fire and brimstone, but hell can be other people. And the reality of it is that when we begin to look, some of us have been thrust into some relationships where we're spending too much time together. Sometimes a home is just not a home. And some homes have been able to survive because we spend 8 hours a day outside of the home. But what happens when we're spending 24 hours together under one roof? And then we see some relationships, we see the wear and tear, okay, and the fabrics of some relationships. And so we've had some issues. Next. So let's talk about social distancing, okay? Because we've been asked to socially distance ourselves from one another. Social distancing means basically staying away from people who live outside your home. And this is not a new concept. In fact, the idea has been around for centuries. One of the earliest references to social distancing are found in the Bible in Leviticus 13:46. And it said, as long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside. Okay? And basically, so we see thousands of years ago, if you identified an illness, you were supposed to be socially distant. You were supposed to be kept away. Okay? Next. 100 years ago, the Spanish influenza pandemic provided evidence of the benefits also of social distancing. And so we see 100 years ago that a similar type of community behavior took place. There was closure of schools. We're talking about 1918 closure of schools, churches, cinemas, restaurants, bars, and other venues, limitations on business hours of operation, and strict regulation of all public assemblies. So this idea of socially distancing oneself is not a new concept. Next, okay? Social distancing encompasses the baseline of what we should be doing now. We've been asked to stay 6 feet away from people who don't live with you. We've been asked to avoid group gatherings. We're being asked to avoid crowded places, and we're being asked to avoid mass gatherings. Next. So I found this would have been with the bubonic plague in 1348. Okay, so social distancing, the burning of clothing, keeping, you know, for your own health and safety, you needed to keep your distance. Okay, next. There's a little joke, you know, when I was a young boy, I used to see and hear persons talk about crinoline, okay, that went under the dresses. And in the history of fashions, they said that one of the things that crinoline was introduced was to support social distancing. And so if women wore their dresses with 3 feet of crinoline on one side and 3 feet on the other, it was a reminder that you didn't get too close. Okay, next. And also you can see again from 1918, okay? So what we're being asked to do is no different. And we found that social distancing works in being able to counteract the effects of these coronaviruses whenever they appear, okay? But social distancing is slightly different from what we call social separation or isolation. And the first one, social distancing, is intentional. We have to be intentional about keeping ourselves separate. But social separation sometimes is unintentional. And we want to explore because we want to make sure that you understand that social separation and social distancing are slightly different. Social separation is the state of being alone or away from others. Okay, so definition. It's the state of complete or near complete lack of contact between an individual and society. And it describes the absence of social contact and can lead to loneliness. So I want us to stop right now and think in terms of social separation leads to loneliness. Loneliness is feeling cut off from normal social networks. Going without human contact for too long can literally break your heart. And that's a statement by the Journal of American Heart Association. So I want us to just pause for a second to think about the severity of social separation and loneliness.
Yeah.
Going without contact for too long can literally, and when we talk about breaking your heart, we're talking about heart attacks. Next. People who are socially separated are lonely and often experience low self-esteem. And over an extended period of time, this leads to stuff like social anxiety, the fear of going out into social situations, depression, and other mental health concerns. Actually, social separation can be an issue for individuals of any age. And so one of the challenges that we have, I've got a 9-year-old niece who's with me, and the thing is that I'm beginning to notice that, you know, she's craving to be around other young people. You know, school was a way of her getting out, enjoying herself, learning, but being socially accepted. And as an only child being here with I guess with a couple of old folks, the thing is that it's a challenge for her. And so we got to begin to look at what happens when persons are socially separated. How does that impact their lives?
Yeah.
Next. Social separation can be triggered by a number of things. Loss of mobility. And that may be physical mobility or the fact that you can't get around the way that you used to. Unemployment. You know, a lot of us, we live for work. When you think about it, most persons who are employed spend more of their awake time at work than any place else.
Yes.
On a typical day, most people are up 6 o'clock. They leave the house 7 o'clock, and especially if you live east where I live, you need to get out early. You go to work, and sometimes you don't get home until 7 o'clock at night. You spend 2 or 3 more hours unwinding, having dinner, doing a couple of things, and then you're in bed. Okay, and so when you become unemployed, it now becomes a challenge because you have lost all of the social contacts that you had. Health issues, staying at home for lengthy periods of time, lack of community involvement, and little or no communication with friends, family, or acquaintances. I'll give you another example. I've got an 82-year-old godmother who lives by herself. And she looks forward to one day a week when I could come there because her world is built on having people come to visit her. And one of the things that she said to me, she said, growing old is really, really a challenge in our community. She says, because we become so isolated. People move on with their lives. And a lot of times the elderly are left to have to take care of themselves. Next. Okay. The American Psychological Association did a recent study, and what they discovered was that there's an increase in the number of clients who are now reporting feelings of loneliness. And they concluded that social separation and loneliness increase the risk for premature mortality. Means that a lot of people are dying early because of the same thing, social separation. Next. This is considered alarming because of the health and mental health risks associated with social separation and loneliness. And what are some of these things? Increased smoking, alcohol use disorder, and drugs. And this is a challenge because, well, we all know what happened with the liquor stores. People couldn't wait for the liquor stores to open because the social distancing, the separation, the lockdown. Well, a lot of people felt that the only way that I could get through it and I could cope with it is that I have to have something to drink to carry me through. And so what APA found was that when people are socially separated, when they feel lonely, they indulge more in alcohol and other drugs.
Wow.
Then there's depression, poor sleep quality, accelerated cognitive decline, okay, dementia. A lot of persons who are socially separated and lonely begin to experience early signs of dementia, poor cardiovascular functions, and impaired immunity. Next.
Wow.
Okay, lonely. It's a lonely world to be socially separated. Okay. So let me ask a question. Are we becoming lonelier or just more inclined to talk about the problem? Okay. And as I continue, I want you to think about that and make some notes, and maybe we could talk about it in the Q&A part of it. But are people becoming more lonely, or are we just more inclined now to talk? Is this generation more apt to coming out and saying, look here, I'm lonely, I need someone? Well, here are some of the facts that I want you to take into consideration. More people are living alone. Does living alone mean that we're becoming more socially separate? The percentage of unmarried adults has grown significantly. So there are more single parents. There are more people who are rearing children on their own. Marriage rates and the number of children per household have declined. You know, if we look even in our own Bahamian society, 2 generations ago, you run into, like my grandmother would say that, oh, there were 12 of us, okay? And so a home was a home because there were always a whole bunch of people in the house. But marriage rates and the number of children per household have declined. Many of my friends are settling for 1 or 2 kids. And then religious attendance is declining. Even when I was a young man, we used to have church on Sunday morning and Sunday night, and you go to Sunday school Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And the generations have changed.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they now say is that, look here, we just need perhaps a midweek service and perhaps a Sunday morning service, and that's it. So even the religious attendance where we all get together and hung out, this has changed as well. Okay. We have all experienced loneliness during life transitions, the death of a loved one, divorce, or a move to a new place. But there's a difference with this loneliness. Next. Now, chronic loneliness. Louise Hawkley of the University of Chicago says that chronic loneliness sets in when individuals either don't have the emotional, mental, or financial resources to get out and satisfy their social needs, or they lack a social circle that can provide these benefits. Are there people who we know who are in the community now who may be on the verge of experiencing chronic loneliness? Is this the end result? If the curfews and lockdowns continue for another couple of months, what will happen to many people? Let's look at that definition again. Emotional, mental, or financial resources to get out and satisfy their social needs. Or they lack a social circle that can provide these benefits. Okay. Next. A study with 580,000 adults in 2019 showed that, again, social separation increases the risk of premature death. Now, this is really interesting. Whilst it was done in the United States, I want to talk about what would we see here. Okay? Among Blacks, social separation doubled the risk of early death.
Wow.
Okay? Race is a stronger predictor of social isolation and separation, and white men and women are least likely to be socially separated. Interesting. Now, how would this apply to us here? Are there different groups that will be impacted more than others? Is there a need to begin looking at this whole area of social separation and the impact it has on the elderly? Just food for thought, and we'll discuss it again at the end. Okay, next. So, the lack of encouragement from family or friends, low family support is a major contributor. So as young persons, how supportive are we of the isolated and the separated members of our family? How many of us have time to visit a grandmother or great-grandmother or aunt or uncle who's elderly? Look at this last line. Loneliness is associated with a 40% increase in a person's risk of dementia. Okay, next slide. So we're right on schedule. So how do we combat the social separation? Okay, let's go. Now, different people are lonely for different reasons. So I need all of us to begin a little introspection. Ask yourself, where does your loneliness stem from? What are your needs? And when you come into contact with someone who talks about being lonely, okay, one of the questions that I want you to really zone in on with them is, what is it that you need in your life? You know, sometimes even with young couples in relationships, they're dating, they're having fun, they're in the prime of their life. And one of them says, you know, I still feel lonely. And really what they're saying is that there's some parts of me, there's some needs that I have that are not being met. So think about it. Where does your loneliness stem from? Next question. Next. Okay. Secondly, aloneness does not mean loneliness. Okay? See, people who are lonely can often be surrounded by others, but they still feel lonely because they don't think others notice them. So again, the question is that you give someone everything that they want. They could be surrounded by people, but the fact is they still feel lonely. And the loneliness has to do with the fact that their needs are not being met. They often feel abandoned in the world and they hate it. See, being alone just means that you don't have others around, and that's okay. But when you are lonely, there are indications of a more serious, deeper need. The absence of other people doesn't mean you're automatically lonely. But then the reverse of it is that you can have a lot of people around you and still feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Next. So, challenges. These are things that we got to think about. How do we stay intact despite what's going on? So we need to begin thinking in terms of how do we improve our social skills. So for persons like Michelle and also Wellington with training, okay, it's important that we provide the social skills for persons to be able to address these needs. How can we enhance our own social support? How do we increase the opportunities for social interactions? How do we get people to understand meaningful relationships as opposed to just fly by night acquaintances?
Yes.
One of the things that's extremely important is in terms of retirement, okay? How do we maintain a sense of purpose? Because as we prepare, and you know, I'm at that point in my life where I'm close to retirement. And some of the information that I'm receiving now, I wish that I had received when I started out back in 1982, because it would have helped me to prepare. Okay? But let's look at this. In my retirement, how do I maintain a sense of purpose? Because that is one of the biggest challenges for many employees today. Sense of purpose. You see, because for 40 years, work has really been your life. Let me just show you how important jobs are. Most times when I meet someone, within 2 or 3 minutes of being introduced to them, they tell me their occupation and what they do. Okay? Now, at 60, 65, you're asked to retire, and then you are stripped of that title. If you have not maintained a sense of purpose, what do you think happens? The other thing is that for 40 years, you've been getting up every day and you've been going to an institution. You've been socializing with people. And then you retire. How do we create that sense of belonging? How do we allow that to continue? Okay, next. So now that brings us to our current reality. And I call it the I will survive. First of all, I was petrified, thought I could never live without you by my side. But then I spent so many nights just thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, okay?
Listen, I was gonna say, Dr. Adderley, this is a bonus of the webinar. Are you singing for us now?
Okay, but just okay, good. We got 10 minutes, and I think I could do it. Okay, okay. So how will we survive? Because let's go back and let's look at some facts. We all have a fundamental need for human connection. Okay, that is our default orientation. So you keep us locked down. We have a curfew, but as soon as that is lifted, we go back because we need to be with people. Our society is built around social gatherings. When asked not to socialize, we socialize. You know, I think I was listening the radio yesterday, and they said someone was charged with breaking curfew, and the thing was that that he went next door because he needed his charger, right? But the thing is that it's the law. The law says that no, you're supposed to stay at home. But the thing he was willing to risk that, you know, that charger he needed to go and he needed to make contact. It's hard to stop. We struggle to resist getting together. Okay? How do we ignore this normal, pervasive need to be among other people? That's a challenge.
Yes.
Next. Okay? Stressful times make our need for connection even stronger. So the hotter the water, the more we want people around us. We want to be in the company of others. We feel better when we're with other people. It's emotionally comforting to be around other people. It's physiologically calming to be around other people. When we're alone, when we're separated, it presents challenges. Next. Okay? Working from home presents challenges. You know, I would tell you the first couple of days, like I say the first 2 or 3 weeks, man, I was riding a cloud. But after the end of week 2, week 3, then it started to bother me a little, and I began to yearn to get back to the workplace. It's fun at home, but it presents some challenges. So let's look at a couple of things. Okay, you see, I realized that I have structure at work, but one of the things, the challenges for me at home is there's a lack of structure. When do you start working and when do you stop?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Man, look here. When do you get up? When do you go to sleep? When do you log? And that should be off of social media. Okay. And I'm feeling sometimes out of control because people know that I'm home. And so they call. I can't give an excuse anymore saying that I have to go out. I'm not going to, you know, on a Saturday or Sunday, I'm home. Yeah. And folks are just calling because they expect you to be there. Okay. Next. Distractions. Okay. People feel the need to call at all times. Like I said, interruptions all day long. I'm home, I'm supposed to be working. And one of the kids said, like, you know, you fixing lunch, let's cook this, let's do this, okay? Emails, you're being bombarded with them. And then television. Some days it's difficult for me to get up because I think I've watched just about every episode of Paternity Court. Last year, if you had asked me about Paternity Court, I would have said, I don't know anything about it, but I watch it, you know? Next. Okay, setting boundaries. I'm sure that I'm blurring the lines between productivity and leisure time. You know, am I being as productive as I can? Or am I spending too much time doing other things? Socializing time and working time. Setting boundaries with others. This is critical. Okay, am I spending enough time or not enough time with my wife? What about kids? Okay, what about parents? Next. Okay, the lack of social interaction during the workday. This was something that I looked forward to, spending time with my colleagues. Okay, not running into people outside of those that we live with. Okay, sometimes you yearn. I get, you know, I look forward to going to the food store now, and I spend. Before I used to go to the food store and be in and out in a couple of minutes. And the other day, I spent almost an hour and a half. I went through every aisle, you know, just looking at something because hey, it's a longing for something different than what I've been doing.
Mhm.
And then I'm realizing that social media is not the same as face-to-face encounters. I'm used to teaching classes. I'm used to interacting. I'm used to being up in your face. I read expressions, okay? And my first challenge was in the middle of the semester. I had to go to Zoom online teaching, which is a challenge, okay? But and now I understand that at least for the next year, I have to begin putting all of my lectures into online, okay? Which is a challenge, and it's gonna require a whole lot of different skills,
Yeah.
okay? But that's the way that we've got to begin looking. Okay, next. And then the difficulty being true to personal goals with so many distractions and energy drains. Why is it that I'm home all day? I haven't done much, but I'm tired. Okay? Yeah. And guess what? I want you to remember this picture, but let's go to the next slide. You see, because there's stress associated with working from home. How tech ready are you? You see, for me, I had to take a crash course in Zoom and all these teams and stuff like that because now I'm being asked to deliver on these platforms that I haven't used before, right? But guess what? I also realized that my home is not tech ready either.
Mm. Wow.
Okay? Because you see, with me working from home, my wife working from home, I got two college students who were doing online courses, and then I've got two nieces who are staying with us who are doing online courses. And then, so you've got all that tapping into the internet. And then each of them got their phones because they don't leave without those phones. And so they got their social media platforms going. And then there's no reason, I'm beginning to understand how is it that I'm not able to get an email. And that's because there's so much Wi-Fi being absorbed.
Yes.
Okay?
Your
And
bandwidth.
also, one of the things that I learned from an educational point of view with lecturing is that, guess what? Many of the students live in homes that are not technically able to support the demands for it. And so my daughter, who's an architect student, I said, guess we had a change. I said, going forward, we now need to design homes that can also accommodate families working from home if need be, because that was never the case before.
Mhm.
Okay? Okay, let's go. Almost, I got a couple minutes and I got to get through. So also what happens was when work was your escape. You see, because again, not every home is a happy home. There's some of us who get up early and left early, and we stayed at work until the wee wee hours because we didn't want to go home because of the tension at home, and also the domestic violence, the abuse.
Yeah.
Okay? So for some people, home is just a place where you go to sleep and you get out quickly the next morning. But, but this pandemic has caused us to have to look at those things. Okay, next slide. And that's just an example. You see the tension that children experience if you're from a home where parents are bickering all day long. You can imagine what that has done to them in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Okay, let's go quickly. Tips for managing stress, working at home during COVID. Okay, set a schedule. When do you work best? I'm a morning person. I get up early. I knock out those challenging tasks first. Okay, I'm learning now to make use of technology. I'm also, it's important that you recognize your needs. What is it that you need to get to the next level? Okay. Um, Tips again, create a cohort and stay connected. Who are the people who support you? Who are the people that you could call in? Who are the people that you look forward to talking to on a regular basis? They are the persons that you incorporate and you reach out to them on a daily basis. All right, you've got to streamline. Okay, you can't take on everything. Certain things you have to be able to say no, and that jumps down to the next one. Get comfortable with saying no. Many of us think that to say no is to be mean. No, sometimes to say no is to survival. You've got to streamline, okay? Protect your sleep, okay? Manage the information that you take in. Limit the negativity. Next. Okay, good. 149.
Right on
And
the
the last
money.
thing is exercise.
Yes, yes.
Exercise. Exercise. I don't know if we're gonna go back to the gyms as they used to be. So working from home and exercising from home may be the new normal for another year or so.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Dr. Adderley, I really want to just take a moment to say thank you. You presented, even as WHI came up with this topic,
Uh-huh.
the way that you built on it just now added so much to me. I literally had to fight to not ask questions as you were presenting. um,
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm
yeah,
glad that I could be of help.
yeah, very good presentation. So awesome presentation. I see some threads coming through on the chat. So now at this point, we're going to transition over to our structured Q&A. As a reminder, please put your questions in the chat. Keishel will be navigating us through that. If you want to get your question out verbally, you can use the reactions icon to the bottom of your screen. You can thumbs up, you can maybe clap, or you could raise your hand and then unmute your mic and feel free to get your question answered. So we have 30 minutes for Q&A from now until 2:20. And Keishel, it is over to you.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, congratulations on a great presentation. I wrote down two words that as you were going through, reflective and sobering. I think that would I can relate to your presentation. It was sobering in that, wow, you didn't think of it from that perspective in terms of social distancing, social separation, but you had a lot of really good reflective points in it. And I, as a trainer, I love that element because I think a lot of times we don't get a chance to reflect as we listen to certain things. So great presentation. So now, how are we going to go into this Q&A session is we had one or two questions that were sent in advance. So I'm going to go to there first. And then there were several questions that have began to start coming in the chat. And then we have several other questions that Wellington and I have put together as well. And then I have my own questions. And I know Wellington said he has his own questions. So we're going to get this.
Listen, at this rate, Keisha, we may be here until 5. I don't know.
And some really good stuff came out. And so the first question that I will start with is it okay to ask for personal space, even if it's going to hurt other people's feelings? And if so, how to do that? So you talked about, of course, everyone is in the same household, tensions are higher. We need our personal space. Work was that kind of separation for many people. How do you now ask for first, is it okay to ask for personal space is the question, even if it's going to hurt other people's feelings? And if that's the case, how do you do it? So that's my add-on to that question. How do you ask for personal space, even if you know it may hurt someone's feelings?
Yeah, it's Keisha, it's about survival, okay? And let me go back again to the years that I spent in substance abuse, and whenever a person was discharged from hospital, a bit of advice was to be selfish about yourself and your sobriety, because you know what it takes for a relapse to take place. So you have to protect yourself. The second thing that I always share with folks is that, oh boy, look, I'm longing for an airplane flight, but but
Don't get me started.
but look at
Listen.
if you notice, whenever you're on that flight, before you take off, the stewardess says that in the event, okay, a gas mask drops, you place your gas mask on first, so that you attend to you before attending to anyone else, even if it's a child. And basically what it's saying is that if you're not taking care of yourself and not taking care of your needs, then you're not going to be in position to take care of other people, okay? And that may mean a spouse, that may mean a child. And so the thing is that with your limited capacity, there's still some things that you can do. So I look forward, like I said, to go into the grocery store because it's my getaway, okay? Yeah. But there's sometimes when I find myself now in the backyard with the dog, okay? spending an extra 10, 15 minutes with him so that I can unload, I can vent. Okay. Sometimes going to the bathroom and spending a few extra minutes in the bathroom. Okay. It's basically what you do. But the thing is that people together are going to get on each other's nerves. I don't care how close a relationship you have. After a while of being together without a little break, you're gonna, okay, you're gonna blow up. And so, and notice how you begin to notice stuff a little bit more. I didn't notice that my wife chews candies until we're sitting in a room all day long working, and I'm trying to work, and she's chewing on a candy, and it's driving me crazy. And so I at that point I decided, look here, let me go wash some clothes, okay? Because if I have to turn around and say to her, could you shut up, okay? Then tempers are gonna start, gonna flare.
Yeah.
And so you have for your own sobriety, for your own emotional stability, take some time.
I love that. I love the concept. You know, you started with be selfish, and people look at selfishness as a negative, as in most cases. But from what I'm hearing from you is it's also a form of self-protection.
It's self-protection.
Yes.
It's self-protection. Let me tell you, someone helped me clean my car last week, and he showed up and he wasn't wearing a mask. And I said, no, you have to wear a mask, okay? Because see, I can't be passive anymore, because what we're facing, you have to be assertive, and you have to, because it's your own health and safety.
Yeah.
Okay? And we look at it from a physical point of view, but from an emotional point of view as well. We need to be able to tell people that, look here, I'm at my breaking point. I need time out.
Yeah. And I'm going to move to the next question, but I think this is so important because I was having a conversation with my husband. We talk about this a lot because at some point I was called in the past antisocial, right? And, I work around people. People is my business. And so there was a point people used to call me antisocial. And Glenn and I still joke about it. And I said to him, I know, and this leads to actually another question. I know as a person, while I'm around people all of the time in my business prior to COVID, I know when I am at a place where I need to isolate. Because I know when I start to get grouchy, I know I'm start to get short with people. I know when I start to think negative, those are my signs. Okay, I need to isolate. I need to get a little bit selfish because I don't want to be around people, as I like to describe it. Yeah. And from what I'm hearing from you is that is necessary. That's a good thing because you now need to know where your limitations are in order to be your best self when you do get around these people again.
Yeah. See, that's critically important. One of the things that I do is I spend a lot of time doing personality profiles. And I always say to folks, understand your needs. I say, when you understand yourself better, then you know how to better understand other people. So let me give you an example. I feel me and you are very similar. I am introvert in the sense that it's not that I don't like people, it's just that I'm very introspective. I'm very perceptive as to what's going on with me. I prefer to do things alone. I love people, but the fact is that I cherish me, being me.
Listen,
Okay?
I have to, sorry, Dr. Adley, finish. I have to put an insert in there after you.
Okay?
And, I have an extrovert question, so this leads to the next question.
Now, and let me tell you, this is this period of distancing is a lot more palatable for introverts than for extroverts, because extroverts get their energy from other people and from outside external activities.
Yeah.
And so for an extrovert, this lockdown is going to be very, very, very difficult. Whereas for me, it was a little easier because I'm already accustomed to being alone and to being creative during my alone time.
Absolutely. I want to put an insert in there. It's really incredible when we think about it, because one of the things that my wife and I talk about when we think about understanding personalities is I'm the same. I'm an introvert. I've learned how to be an ambivert when I need to be in
Yes.
training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's a displayed behavior when it's
Mm-hmm.
needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for me, I need quality time with my family, the four of us, my wife and two kids. I need quality time with my wife, but I also need quality time by myself.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and for me, that self time is recharging time.
Mm-hmm.
My wife used to tease me when we met in university. She was like, "Why do you just lay in your bed and stare at the roof?"
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, that is my recharging time. Like I don't need to do anything to recharge.
Yes.
I just need to be by myself.
Look
Yeah,
here, I consider these weekends a blessing because I don't have to worry about anyone pulling up to my house unexpectedly and me having to entertain.
Listen,
listen, I think we all, three of us, we can probably go down that road because it seems though we all are that same type of person.
yeah,
You know, I don't mind being alone.
yeah. Now, one quick insert I want to make before Keishel continues with her questions. We have some good questions coming in. I want you to be aware that if we don't get to all of them, Dr. Adderley has committed to take those questions and give us written responses. And we also have his contact information at the end, which we will share, so you could follow up directly with him. All right.
Awesome for that. So yeah, so let's so this second question is the flip side of it, right? So so the question is, I am more extrovert and I prefer in-person interaction with individuals. So the social distancing protocols are really impacting me. What would you recommend that I do remotely to to still maintain healthy relationships?
Well, I had this conversation with my brother. Now, my brother's extrovert, okay? But he lives by himself.
Mm.
And he shared with me the other day, he said that in the last 2 weeks, he celebrated 3 or 4 birthday parties because they have Zoom birthday parties. And
Yeah.
I'm saying, I mean, he wakes up, he gets dressed up, he has his plate of food, and they socialize and they talk. And I'm saying to myself, how do you do it? You see, because persons, they feed off each other. And that's the key thing with extroverts. Extroverts charge each other and they keep the fire going. And so there's a lot of group chats, there are a lot of Zoom parties, and other. They even play games. I know that they're into the TikToks. They're doing everything that they could possibly do to keep in line. And he's one of those persons who, if you look at his Facebook page, he's got hundreds of persons. So that social aspect of it doesn't really die. They're still connected and they're still interacting on a regular basis. So they are satisfying their needs, but they're using electronic technology to help them to get there.
Okay, thank you for that. I love that. And like I said, I could talk about introversion and extroversion forever. I just text my husband. I'm like, if you're not on this, you need to be on, because we have this debate all the time about introversion and extroversion. So
And
let me go on. I can go down that ladder.
Let me just say something. This is so important, especially in couples therapy and also in premarital counseling, because we live in a world where someone says, "Oh, I need you to be more like me." No, we don't need to be more like each other, because as much as I am an introvert, my wife is an extrovert. And so the thing is that it's a balancing act that goes on. You see,
Yeah.
there are times when I have to play the cooler because she's so extroverted and so hype that I have to calm her down. But she's good for me because I could stay in my room the whole day. And the thing is that I need her to be able to pull me out. So it's not about changing the other person. It's understanding that person and learning how to work with that person. You see? So now when I don't want to deal with certain things, I give her the phone because I know she can jump in and she's going to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So hold on, the questions are coming in now. So let me remain focused. So Peter Gowdy had a question. Peter, are you there? Do you want to come out? And I only see you have a question for Richard on suicide. Do you want to bring it? So we kind of shifting gears, but I know this was one of the first questions that came in. I don't want to lose that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Richard, hello.
Hey, Peter. And Peter and I
Good.
just spoke before we came on.
Yeah, I know. But also, I was probably at CIBC one of your first clients with Bridges.
That was back in 1992, Peter.
Yeah, I know. Hey, you don't have to tell our age.
I was gonna say you're dating yourself. You're dating yourself.
But it's been a long relationship, yes. Richard, great presentation.
Thank you.
And I had to laugh when you talked about people going to the supermarket and spending more time. And I'm sure that's true. Because there's some people who were going to the supermarket and they were starting to kick them out because they only buy one thing. I said, why are you here so long? Anyways, Richard, I read an amazing article today, which I will send to you because I'm sure you'll find it, it's fairly long, but it talked to where 600 doctors in the States had raised all the issues of what's happening to people in lockdowns. Mm-hmm. And which is exactly what you were talking about today. So I'm reading this article and I'm saying, yeah, this is exactly what we're going to hear. And they were talking about the suicide rate in the States is going up over 600% because of people, as you talked about, being locked down, feeling lonely, all those things. And I don't need to go on about them. Have we seen an increase here? I don't think so, but I found it, I don't know what the word is. I guess it shocks you and brings you into reality when you hear something like that.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'll send you that article. But I just wondered if you could comment on that, and what the, maybe the issues have been in the Bahamas, maybe compared to other countries. I'm not sure. I don't know. I put my hands up because I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't, the statistics that I've seen hasn't supported suicide in our country just yet. And I say just yet because what I know about suicide is that most people do not commit suicide when they're going downhill. They commit it when they're at the bottom and they're trying to climb back up. Okay? And what they find is that there's no support, there's no hope, there's no future, there's no one that they could rely on. That is when the suicide, when persons begin to attempt suicide. So if we use that definition, what we will probably see is that Corona will be over and done with, and then we look to see if there's going to be an up movement, an upswing in the economy. And when people realize that, look here, that job that I had will not be calling me back, and the amnesty period with the banks where they're calling and saying that, look here, Corona is finished, but now you have to make mortgage payments and there's nothing coming in, and you cannot turn to your friend here to the left, your friend to the right, because they're in a similar situation. And then you're looking at it and you're saying that, where do I turn to? And one young gentleman that I worked with, who's suicide, said to me that, I asked him, I said, how does someone feel, what does it feel like when you're about to attempt suicide? And he said to me, he said that, look here, he said that when you feel that all is lost and there is no hope. And I suddenly realized that perhaps the difference between me and him was that I've never even gotten to that point yet, because I've always been able, there's something resilient in me that I always think in terms that there has to be an alternative, okay? And so, so we won't begin to see some of the emotional or the deeply troubled individuals until later on in the year, when people are realizing that there is no hope.
Wow, Richard, thank you. That's helpful. Wow.
That is, whoa, that has brought up so much insights. This is, wow, I love this conversation. That's interesting. And so, as I think about it, the people who are working to empower, educate, inspire, et cetera, these type people should really be focused on getting their message out, serving as much as possible in this area, because yeah, you're going to expect to see perhaps, an increase. That was very insightful at that comment you made.
And Keisha, for you and William, one of the things that we may want to begin to look at the training institute is this whole concept of resilience. Because how do we build resilience? Okay,
Yes.
especially in the workplace, in employees. Okay, and from a human resources point of view, how do we build resilient employees?
Yes. Yes.
You see, because we're going to be asked, they're going to be employees who have to come to work, but the fact is that their lives at home are going to be broken. Okay, they're going to have some deep rooted issues, and we're asking them to come back to work 9 to 5. But how do you concentrate on work when you've got when your life is a shamble? Okay, yeah. And then even in the school systems, we have to build resilience in children. We have to teach them what it is to be resilient. The reality of it is that people are now entering, and Peter and I have discussed this, we're now entering another phase, because as of June 1st, this weekend, they're going to be, we're already thinking about season, but there's anxiety and panic and fear of Hurricane Dorian, who went into COVID-19, and now we're just about ready to end the season, and there's panic. What do we do?
Yeah.
You see? And if persons are, if at this point they're beginning to give up and to think in terms that all is lost, so yeah, we got to put on some courses. We got to help people to understand what is it to be resilient.
Yeah.
If I could just quickly interject, sorry, Wellington, but every HR manager, he's driving it home to me, and I am an HR, that's all I do. But every HR manager should be starting to talk to their other managers that they need to keep an eye on the younger, they're, if you want their lower staff, I don't want to sound nasty or anything, but to watch them, because there may be exactly what Richard's saying, there may be signs of people starting to crack. Yeah. And that's a huge thing we all need. I don't want to interject anymore, but it's a huge point. Richard, thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Oh boy, let's go on.
That's a major one, yeah.
Okay, so so I like this question as well. It says, in response to the stay-at-home emergency orders, companies spend a lot of time getting their employees tech ready to work from home. Do you think, though, that some time should be scheduled for social interaction with those employees at home, instead of asking for a task update, for example, play a word game, showcase Zoom, Got Talent, or just have a laugh, etc.? So what are your thoughts on that? I like this question.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bell and I'm working.
Whoever said it in, I agree. We laughter at this point is so important, and fun. It's so important, and we have to teach children, and we have to demonstrate the importance of relaxing and having fun. When I grew up, I lived in a different world. When I grew up, both of my parents were teachers, and their philosophy was that you studied, you went to school, then you came home, you did your homework, and then you did their assignments and everything. And they considered any type of recreation as goofing off, okay? And not realizing the importance of being able to have fun on a daily basis. And we have to teach people to be able to relax. And with all of the tension, okay, productivity go down, people don't have the opportunity to relax and have fun. And I think if I, as a HR person or as a manager, I think it's critical that I check in with my employees on a regular basis and have conversations with them, not just about the quality and the quantity of work that they're producing, or whether or not they're truly working at home, but to have some lighthearted conversation with them about what's happening with them, what sort of things are they doing for leisure, okay? Which is, and let me share something else with you. My children, I've got three, 21 through 25. They do not understand some basic cultural stuff that we grew up on. Okay. The other night I was singing Blue Hill Water Dry, Nowhere to Wash My Clothes. I
Yeah.
remember the Saturday night, fried fish, and they had never heard it. But the fact is that that was a whole teaching experience, teaching moment for them. Laughter, laughter, laughter. That's what's going to get us through. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so from a organizational point of view, we owe it to our employees, okay, to help them, to get them through this by just not pounding the work, but also a little lighthearted, a little fun, a little, leisure, pleasure, all of those things.
I
Critically
love that.
important.
And you, yeah, that's the touch on me because I'm work focused too. So, and my assistant is on this call, so I can try add more fun to the conversation.
Yeah, you have to.
I'm guilty of that one.
And I always look at it, this example, I heard many years ago, it's like tuning a guitar, right? If you create too much tension, then what happens is that the strings pop. If you don't have enough tension, okay, then you don't get any music.
Wow.
And so from a management point of view, there has to always be an observation of a balance. When is it that, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. And so, but the only way you're going to find out about what's happening with people is that you got to sit and you got to talk with them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You got to ask these questions.
Awesome. But wow, I'm reminded that we have only a few more minutes. So let's go on.
Okay.
Okay, so you had a question on exercise. I just want to say that we have next week, we'll be focusing on exercise. Having adult children has changed my perspective as it relates to personal time or my space, honestly, as it relates to a lot of talking. In my home, I wonder if this is a question, I didn't read it. In my home, we have to come to a consensus. So during this lockdown, we use limits as guidelines and boundaries as true barriers to protect our sanity. I love that. It's been working for most of us. So that's not necessarily a question, but I love the comment.
Yes.
Let's go to a question. Is it normal for persons to want to change their career, jobs altogether in a time like this?
Normal, yes. Okay. Do you go through with it? Not necessarily. So let me explain. Whenever we're going through what we call disasters, people tend to have a lot of time to think. Okay. And they contemplate and they ponder over things for a long period of time. Now you also have to be practical in making the decision.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's step back and give you an example. Usually, like during hurricanes and stuff like that, a lot of persons make decisions about marriages and relationships and stuff like that. A lot of times with life-threatening experiences, people make decisions as to whether or not I want to continue in this relationship or whether or not, thank God, let me get out of this relationship. Okay. It also comes down to, like I said, with careers. Some people work for companies. I remember with Hurricane Dorian, and I was speaking with persons, and some people came to the conclusion that, look here, I saw certain companies who went way overboard to help their employees. And I've been working for 15 years for this company and they didn't do anything for me. I can no longer continue to work, you see? So it's these types of experiences when you've got time to sit and to reflect and to contemplate, people make decisions. But you have to be practical because leaving a company right now may not be in your best interest because we don't know what 3 months down the line holds. So if you've got a job now, you want to hold on to it, but it should be a stepping stone. You should be saying to yourself, okay, when things return to normal, maybe I need to, to put myself in a better position so that if this occurs in 2 or 3 years, I'm in a better position to be able to deal with it. So what is it that you need to do? Okay. My wife works in insurance, and one of the things, we often laugh about is funerals are the best times to sell life insurance.
Yep, yep, yep. Oh boy. That's another conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have two more quick questions. I know we're out of time, but I think they all have actually multiple questions, but they all have, if I could kind of put it into two core questions, I think that'll sum up all of the questions that we have. The first one is, how do you help a child who is a social butterfly who's locked in the house for the past 2 months and is designed to do something with their friends? And the second question that related to that was, and I'll put them all together, is as a mother, grandmother, how do you assist children and families who want an outlet for their kids at this time? So that's the first question, and I need to end with one more core question, Wellington.
Okay. That first question, I think the same thing applies to adults. Okay. So I got a similar situation. I got a niece who's staying with me, who's a social butterfly, who doesn't miss everything. I ask her sometimes, how is it that you get invited to a party every weekend? Okay. This has been a nightmare for her, but she's been able to survive because of social media. Okay. And so the thing is that I have got to help her to balance that there's time for social media, but there's also time for online classes, and also to realize that this will not last forever. And then one of the things that I've gotten to look at is that how many people have actually been looking for you. Okay, because you see, this is important. The law in social psychology, the law of reciprocation says that we usually reward persons who reward us. And so I've asked, I said, now of all those hundreds of friends, how many of them have called? How many of them have checked in on you? I said, who are the ones who have supported you? Who are the ones who have inquired? Who are the ones who've been there for you? I said, moving forward, these are the people that you need to be more concerned about. I said, because that's just life. You're gonna, you meet people, but some people come into your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. Identify with the ones who are there for a lifetime, and the ones who are just there for a season will understand that it's a season. Yeah?
That's good. Ooh, I love that. All right, the final question, Wellington. I'm stretching it a little bit. The final question.
Go ahead.
And so this again is a two-part question. I think tied in together, two individuals. Number one, how do we prepare persons for return to society post-COVID? Two, how do we start to build hope as a nation?
Well, one of the things, let's start with the last one. One of the things that I like about the history of the Bahamas is that if you look back at history, even to the days of bootlegging, prohibition, and all U.S. Civil War, all of those things, is that the Bahamas seems to be we are always able to come back and bounce back, and we are a resilient people. We are a resilient country, and so the thing is that if we look to our history, what is it that we can take from how we've operated in the past and to put those things together to move forward? And I have no doubt that that we will bounce back. What the issue that we have, Tisha, is that we're also impatient. This new generation, we're impatient, and the problem is that we're not prepared to sit around and wait, and that's one of the challenges. And so a part of resilience involves patience, understanding that things will not bounce back to normal in another couple of months. So what we need to do is that what is it that we have in our history that we could impart and teach young people to make them resilient, but to make them patient, to make them work towards. It's gonna come. It just won't come all at one time. And how do we not self-destruct while we're waiting for things to return to the new normal?
I love that. Awesome. Well, I think that's a really good place to end the talk. I don't know which session I love more, but I think at this point I can say this has been my favorite because I just love this deep type of conversation.
Yeah.
So Wellington, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Keishel. I'm going to take a line from Darrell Miller and say that this was lively and provocative.
Oh,
I am loving it. Oh my gosh. To me, it feels like we're building more and more momentum with every session we do. Outstanding job, Dr. Adderley. I had no doubt in my mind, but you exceeded my expectations. So a couple quick things. Right now, we're trending about 5 minutes past our schedule. So I just want to point out, if you have to leave right at 2:30, that's completely understood. We thank you for your time today. But if you could allow us until 2:35, we would appreciate your flexibility. All right. So a couple of key themes that I wrote down. It was just so much to take in. But there's a difference between social distancing and social separation. There's a difference between loneliness and being alone. And there's a difference between loneliness and chronic loneliness. We need to be aware. There were some tips that were shared. Set a schedule, recognize your needs, create a cohort where you can build some accountability, streamline your life, reward yourself, even if it's small milestones. Say no. Listen, this saying no thing is powerful. I struggled when I was growing up with saying no, because I viewed that my acceptance and I guess my image would be
And sense of
impacted,
belonging.
and sense of belonging would be
Yes.
impacted if I said no. But I learned several years ago that no protects me, and it also helps me to be more successful. So knowing how and when to say no and not to pedal back on it is key. Protect your sleep. I think I saw some stats that said that over 50% of people are sleep deprived,
Yeah.
but we don't even know. And then manage your information intake. Many sessions ago, and it's incredible that I could say many, because it has been about almost 2.5 months. But there's a difference between being informed and being inundated. And I know that for me, when we started really getting all the communications on COVID, at one point I told my wife, I'm like, love, I know I need to tune into this press conference. I just can't. It is too much. We talk about it at work. We talking about it in like 30 different chats on my WhatsApp. You know, when you go outside, your neighbors are talking about it. I need a break. So manage your information intake. Critically important points. And then I want to end on this concept of resilience. Dr. Adderley hit the nail on the head. You know, we have a new normal. And whether we want to accept it or not, that new normal is forming, and it is coming very quickly. So when we think about long-term success, we need to think about resilience. WHI is in the process of publishing a book in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and it talks about that. We use a different term, but it means the same thing. We call it change agility. How do you adapt to change? How do you be resilient? How do you respond? How do you not feel defeated when change comes? So stay tuned for that, because we will be getting more information on that and how we can build our resilience and change agility for the future. So at this point, I want to hand it over to Dr. Adderley. You can just wrap us up, you know, tell us a little bit about your work, tell us about what you do, and you know, how we can get in contact with you.
Yeah, well, like I said before, my work is primarily with employees and their families. And I love employee assistance programs because it's the ability for families to get help and continue to work. And most of my life was spent in substance abuse treatment. And what happened was that I learned about working with families, individuals, and that propelled me to learn more about occupational health and to provide the services that persons in the workplace need. And so, like Peter said, I've been working with a company for the past 25 years called Bridges. And we offer employee assistance programs to a number of companies and their employees. And it's all done in a very confidential manner. HR can refer, or individuals can self-refer. And 25 years of consistency, and I love it. It's my area. So you can reach me at the University of the Bahamas. I'm also a part of the Bahamas Psychological Association. And then finally, the 359-3399 is our Bridges hotline if anyone needs to get in contact with me. Or you can just send me an email at rbadley@gmail.com.
Excellent.
And if I could put a plug in for Richard,
Yeah.
Bridges, CIBC has been a Bridges customer since 1992. That's 28 years, not 20.
Oh yeah, 20 years. Okay, good.
Wow. 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 Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that, Dr. Adderley. Keishel, over to you. Tell us a little bit about the Training Authority.
Well, thank you, Wellington. I must say that, one of our goals as the Training Authority is to teach people how to develop their skills in a variety of areas, right? So we work with organizations primarily. We teach their employees skill development in, leadership, Microsoft Office, which has been one of our key areas, communication, service, that level of training. And then we also work with the small business person, the entrepreneur, and teach them skills on how to succeed and lead in business. And so for me, it's all about training and development, skill development, because I truly believe that in order to achieve a vision, a goal that an individual as well as an organization have set, you need that skill. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing: training, coaching, consulting in a variety of topic areas.
Absolutely. And I've said it on every webinar that Keishel has been a part of, and I'll continue to say it. When I was discovering my purpose and understanding, what value I have to add to the world, Keishel was someone I looked up to as a trainer and an educator, and I still do to this day. I remember, 10 years ago, I would pull up her website and I'd look at her LinkedIn profile and I'll be like, all right, this is what she's doing. What could I do that's similar but still differentiates me?
I didn't know that, Wellington.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're one of my role models. She wrote a book. Maybe I could write a book. So when Keishel talks about her company, I really strongly encourage you to consider the offerings that she has. She's someone I looked up to and still to this day. And WHI wholeheartedly endorses her company.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. You're welcome. So now I wanna switch gears a little bit. So you've heard a little bit about the book that we're publishing, so I won't talk about that. We have 4 more minutes. On the screen is a flyer for a caricature workshop that a close friend of mine and business partner is putting on. His name is Rembert Motamore. WHI wholeheartedly believes, just like Keishel, in everything that Rembert Motamore and his company is doing. His company is called Waynehead Productions, and they have a webinar tonight from 6 to 7:30. And to support Rembert's vision, we decided to do a scholarship for 2 individuals who wanted to participate in this workshop. So Rembert, I know you're on the line. I just want you to unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about, the vision behind tonight, please. Are you there? Maybe you dropped off. If you did, that's fine. All right, no worries. But I want to highlight Waynehead Production and Rembert's company. Rembert is the creative genius behind all of the marketing you see for WHI. I'd love to take credit, but my good Christian character does not allow me to. Rembert and his company, all of the marketing, all of the flyers, the website, all of it. It's him and his company. So if you're looking for a good company that you need to do some, marketing, promotions work, you need a website created, you need some flyers done, Waynehead Production is the way to go. All right, so stay tuned. If you're interested in this type of stuff, please check out his webinar. He's on all the social media feeds. You can Google him and you can participate. I have 2 more minutes. So now I want to highlight our pop-up challenge winners. So yesterday, WHI did a pop-up challenge where we gave away a free digital workbook and digital certificate to 3 individuals. The first 3 individuals to reply to my email, tell me how WHI has impacted their life, and to send in their photo. And these are our 3 winners. And I think the 3 of them may be on the line. But I want to thank you, Lakeisha, Prenet, and Chantel. WHI is in the business of making people better. And, I'll try not to sound sappy, but it really does make me emotional when I think about this type of feedback. The fact that we're helping people to become better, faster, further, longer, stronger. So I just wanted to highlight our pop-up winners and say thank you and just recognize them for participating in our challenge. All right. I also want to highlight very quickly that WHI, after each workshop, produces certificates that can be purchased if you are interested in purchasing a certificate. The reason why we've decided to do these certificates is I've gotten a lot of different requests from individuals who just want to show that they've attended a training session. We are also in the process of getting these sessions certified through the Society for Human Resources Management and also the HR Certifications Institute, the two biggest HR bodies, so that we'll be able to get PDU or continuing ed points for these sessions. So if you're interested in purchasing a certificate, reach out to me after the webinar. It's $4.99 US to purchase your certificate, and I will send that digital certificate over to you. We are at 2:35. I'm going to wrap up. So the last note that I want to share is that we have another webinar coming up next Sunday, pretty much the same time. This is the draft flyer, so bear in mind there may be edits to it, but we will be talking about My Health is My Wealth. You could amass millions of dollars. You could have 100 million contacts on social media. You could have the most developed network out of everyone in our society. But if you don't have good health, you are at a loss. So during this pandemic, we want to talk about how do we manage our health and promote our health, even remotely, even though we're being encouraged to stay home. We have weekday curfews and we also have weekend lockdowns. So we'll be hearing from Jay Roll, Donovan J. Roll, who's the president of J Fitness. And in this session, we're going to do something different. We're actually going to get active. So for a small segment of the session, we're going to do a workout. So come with your tennis shoes on, come prepared to get active and start, if you haven't started already, your exercise routine. All right. So I want to thank each one of you for attending this webinar. I strongly believe that knowledge is power. I live by a personal principle that if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, go with people. So I really appreciate all of your time today, all of the questions. Again, thank you, Dr. Adderley, for sharing your knowledge and years of expertise. Thank you, Keishel, for co-hosting this event. And then the final note I want to make is that this recording will be made available on the WHI YouTube channel and on the WHI website. All right. Thank you for your time, guys. Stay tuned, and
Okay.
we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.